Hi, I'm Jana with Mountain Shadows Equine Revival, and today I want to talk about trailers. Trailers are obviously super important for hauling your horses, but when you're first getting started with horses, there may be some things that you don't know or don't think to ask, and so I want to kind of answer some of those questions ahead of time and talk about trailer maintenance and things to look for. So, always important before you take a trip with your trailer to check out, just do a walk around and check for your general well-being and state of your trailer. So things I like to look for are things like these trim to make sure everything's in place. Once had where this trim here pulled up because some of the rivets popped out. And while that may not create a problem while I'm driving, if say I were to hook up a horse here and tie a horse, that's the kind of thing could get stuck on a leg. And so you always want to have in mind the general well-being of your trailer. So looking at that stuff, tires, be checking that they're filled up, that you have good tread depth and you don't see any wear, especially since our trailers tend to sit for a while. You might develop some cracks. So it's good to check that, especially spring and then definitely periodically throughout the year to make sure that's still doing good. Always good idea to take your trailer in once a year for a checkup at your mechanic, because they will catch things underneath, for example, to make sure that the body is looking good under there, your axles, and you really want to get those wheel bearings packed periodically. If there's not enough grease in your wheel bearings, you can get friction in there that can actually cause a fire. And when you have wood floors in your trailer, there have been cases of the trailer floors catching on fire while in motion from wheel bearings that weren't packed recently. So that's an item to make sure that you're keeping up with the maintenance on your trailer. Another important thing to be checking frequently you also want to check your floors. So I like to pull up my mats periodically and just make sure that those wood floors are still in good condition. If you start to get rot here, so when you've got organic matter, pee, manure, maybe hanging out under the mats, or if you've been in rainy weather, you can develop some rot in your floorboards, and that becomes a safety issue. If they can't carry weight the way they used to, they could break when your horse is in the trailer and your horse could fall through. So be checking your floors to make sure that they're staying in good condition. Always when you're done with a trip, you want to make sure you clean out your trailer. Again, so that you don't have organic material building up, especially gathering moisture, even with your mats, and that can kind of sink down and affect those boards. And that can be really expensive to replace the boards in your trailer. So good to keep on top of that ahead of time. You also want to check things like make sure all of your dividers are working well, that everything's in good repair. You never want to travel with a trailer that's jerry-rigged. So make sure everything works in its original condition. So the other thing to be aware of, especially if you need to do any training with your horse related to the trailer, it always needs to be hooked up before you put any weight in here. So you never want to load a horse in your trailer, even if you're not going anywhere, unless it's hooked up to your vehicle. The jack simply can't support that weight or act stable enough when you have a horse in the trailer. So let's look at that next, how to hook up. All right. So you'll see this here is a bumper pole trailer, meaning that it is designed with a tongue that hooks onto the hitch of whatever vehicle you'll be towing with. Always make sure that whatever vehicle you're towing with has a tow capacity that's rated for the weight of your trailer. And so you want to make sure that your trailer weight plus the weight of anything you're hauling, such as your horses, together aren't going to exceed that weight. Otherwise, you could pull the hitch off your towing vehicle and cause a safety issue. So always double check that with your vehicle. There are also, of course, what are called gooseneck trailers, which have a big attachment that come out and hook into usually the bed of a pickup truck. Today, we're talking about a bumper pole. So this is what the attachment looks like. So I have the hitch here on my vehicle. We have the jack which there are different styles of jack. Mine happens to rotate this way and come down and have a stand. I like to keep it on a block so the stand doesn't have to bear as much weight. It doesn't have to go down as far. So you lower that right onto your hitch. Another thing to be aware of here in terms of the type of hitch to get is you want to make sure that when your trailer is on the hitch, you want to have an angle to your trailer that's about horizontal or maybe a little up past horizontal, so that when you have weight in the front of the trailer and it pushes down, you end up at more of a horizontal angle. So that'll determine whether you need a hitch that comes straight out, dips down, or comes up. All right, so once you've got your hitch on there, I have to give mine a little kick. Then we put the pin in here. So I like to have the cotter pin because it just helps make sure if this collar ever slipped off that you still secure right here, and that collar can't come any farther back. Your chains, the standard here is to cross these for safety, and these are safety chains. You want to make sure they're well attached to your trailer, that these connections are secure, because if this collar were ever to come off, you want to make sure you're still attached to your trailer and it doesn't go riding off on its own. So that's important. We have this little extra thing here. Most trailers won't have that. And then here is your electrical plug. We have a 7-pin plug. This controls the electricals for your trailer, which includes your lights, your brake lights, your turn signals, and your electric brakes if you have them. And so you want to make sure that it's well attached on your vehicle, and these will be in different places on different vehicles. There's also a little knobby here, and there's a corresponding knob to keep that in place on the vehicle side, so you make sure that's locked in. I've had several times where my plug will come out, go dragging, it destroys the plug, and they're a real pain to replace, so make sure that's in there securely so your electricals are working properly.
Also be sure that the ball size on your vehicle hitch matches the size of the opening on your trailer hitch, whether that's 2-inch, 2.5-inch, etc. Never try to tow with the wrong size ball.
Another thing to be aware of is to make sure that your pin holding your hitch in place is in there real securely, and that you do have that secured with a pin that'll keep that from sliding out. So make sure that's in place. All right, since we keep a block under our jack, when you go, you want to make sure you take this with you. I always take all of my blocks and my wheel chocks back here with me. So definitely when your trailer is parked, you want to make sure you have some wheel chocks to keep it from rolling away when you're not attached. And again, I like to take these with me so that in case I end up in an emergency situation where I need to detach the trailer, I can still keep that trailer safe in whatever position it ends up in. So before you go, I just want to double check and make sure you have all of your attachments done securely so that you're safe to drive off. Another thing I want to mention is training. Make sure whatever trailer you're using, so if you're borrowing a trailer or you get a trailer for the first time, before you load a horse in it, you want to make sure you know how everything works. So for example, this is a stock type trailer, and so it doesn't have the slant dividers, but if you had slant dividers before you try to load a horse, you want to make sure you know exactly how those work and latch. Same with if you have a stock type trailer, this one has a single divider that goes into the middle. You just want to make sure that you understand and that everything is working properly for how this is going to be secured. And then the same goes for outer doors, for example. Make sure that you understand all of those. As I just mentioned, this is a stock type trailer. You'll see that it's very open, it's taller, but it is kind of dark. We have some windows in here. There's a decent sized step to get up here. Different horses may have been trained or may be comfortable loading in different types of trailers. So just because you have a horse that you know loads doesn't mean that it will necessarily load in every style of trailer. So if you know that you're going to be using a different trailer, take the time for training, give plenty of time before you have to get anywhere to accustom that horse to the trailer to make sure you don't have an issue with loading either on the front side or when you have to come back. So that's really important because especially, for example, trailers with ramps, many horses don't like to step on those ramps. They feel unstable, even though it seems like it may assist with having to take a big step up, or they may be uncomfortable with the look inside the trailer. This is especially true, for example, for straight loading, when the horse has to load straight in and there's a divider, and then have to be able to back out. Those are special skills that horses have to learn. So take the time to really make sure that your horse is comfortable loading into whichever type of trailer you intend to use later for transporting. All right, and so another thing to be aware of when you are trailering is tying.
It's important to note that not all horses can or should be tied while trailering.
This trailer has a manger at front where you can put hay, and it has a tie point here in the corner. When you're tying, you want to make sure that the horse has enough rope to where they can move their head comfortably, but not so much to where they could get in trouble by getting stuck a leg over or some other part of themselves to get wrapped in. A good rule of thumb is to use about an arm's length worth of rope on your lead rope. When you are traveling with hay, there's a couple of ways you can do that. Here we have loose hay, but if you had these vents, for example, open, there might be a lot of airflow from the front of the trailer. This loose hay could kind of fly into their face and might give them some eye irritation. They do make nets to hold hay down in the front. And they also make hanging nets. And same goes, for example, if you were to hang a net here for the horse in the back, you want to make sure it's not hanging so low where if they got scared or in trouble, they could get a leg into it or over it and get stuck on it. So just be careful with how you do that. Another thing to point out here is this trailer has windows that do kind of slide so that I can adjust airflow to the front or back. It's really important when horses are traveling that they do have good circulation and airflow so they don't overheat. But you also want to have a mind to what the weather conditions are doing so that they don't get wet or cold unnecessarily. Some trailers will have drop-down windows that make that a little easier to control. So it really depends on the type of trailer that you're traveling with.
Make sure to load the most weight, that is your heaviest horse, in the front or vehicle end of the trailer to stay stable while driving.
Now that you're ready to roll, always make sure that your lights are working so that people can see your turn signals. As we know, people can be a little bit dumb driving when they're around horse trailers. They tend to try to pass you quickly or ride your bumper. So having working lights and turn signals is really helpful for staying safe on the road. Another quick tip, when you do go to pull your trailer, you always want to make sure that you accelerate and decelerate and turn much slower than you normally would. Remember that your horse is in there trying to balance in this moving object, and so you want to make that as easy a process on them as possible so they don't get scared or get unbalanced. So just make sure to take that extra time on the road and have fun trailering with your horse.